Hi, Dr. Bardon. I hope your recovery is going well. I hope that you enjoy the break in between the semesters. So let's talk about my project. My project is an ideographic comparative analysis between the U.S. flag and Jihadi John. There's a two-step method. First, we go through ideographs, and then we apply Wunder's third persona to see what's going on with the ideographs. Um, Hopefully, this produces dialectical tension of self and other within Martin and Nakayama's framework of difference and similarity. Um, to that end, so we have to examine what ideology is. Ideology is essentially the operating system of individuals within a culture, right? There can be multiple ideologies within a culture, and they're often, most of the time, competing with one another. Um, so, what is the big bad ideology of the moment that I'm studying? Well, I didn't go out trying to study it. It's just popped up into my face, and you're going to see why. But the big bad ideology at the moment, the boogeyman, is neoliberalism. Neoliberalism, according to Santos and Giroux, is uh, 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 capitalism infused with ideology that is self-referential of capitalism, i.e., the ideology purports more capitalism. And the kind of identity that is valued by it, according to to Giroux, is that you're white, you're Christian, you're capitalist, and you're male. That is the valued identity. Um, uh, so with that set up, those things defined, let's look at the literature. So McGee, in his 1980 article, there's three things we need to take from this. First, that ideographs are tools for social control. Second, that that only words and text are ideographs. And third, this idea of horizontal oppositionality versus vertical symmetry. All right, on ideographs are tools for social control. This is obvious. First, what is an ideograph? Well, it is a slogan, a set of words that don't have a defined meaning, but if you're within that culture, there is a common association that occurs. When you see the U.S. flag, if you're an American citizen, there are certain things. If you see Iwo Jima, Rosenthal's videograph that Edwards and Winkler talk about, there's certain connotations that are brought forth. Um, uh, um, Now, on this horizontal versus vertical stuff. So, vertical symmetry is the idea that ideographs can have similar starting points, or they can be grounded within the same framework. Take, for instance, privacy and rule of law. Nixon, during Watergate, he used privacy, tried to make it a bigger value than the rule of law and transparency. He tried to shrink those two unsuccessfully, but that's what he tried to do, and this exemplifies horizontal oppositionality. That you have words that have similar roots, but you can still use them against each other. Um, and he also said that only words and text are possible of being ideographs. And Edwards and Winkler take him to task in their 1997 article about Iwo Jima. They give a four-part criteria, which actually it's McGee's four-part criteria, and they apply it to visual images, and it works fantastic. So right now we're going to review how both Jihadi John and the U.S. flag are ideographs. First, they're both ordinary images. And basically what this means is the first requirement, it means that they have to both be widespread. I don't really need to spend more time here, but they're both widespread. Second, collective association or collective commitment. Basically, what means is that it means the same thing or similar things to people within the same ideology and within the same culture. All right, and this is true of the flag. This is true of Jihadi John. The U.S. flag represents, according to Edwards and Winkler, democracy, liberty, and equality. Depictions of terrorists, according to Cloud and Said, represent irrational, savage, misogynistic, and bodies and flesh full of terror. Um, the next requirement is that it guides or controls social behavior. The U.S. flag definitely does that. It is used in the name of nationalism to override things like self-preservation, like with draft dodging. Why aren't there more draft dodgers? People are truly rational beings because they're not truly rational beings all the time, especially when ideology is at play. Um, Lastly, is that they're bound. Oh, Jihadi John is controls behavior too, because it allows the framing of Jihadi John, the framing of Islam, the Islamic and Middle Eastern other, allows us to devalue their life, to where we can sacrifice it on the altar of collateral damage. And even, as Dylan would say, maybe to the end point of Holocaust, to say that we have to save ourselves by committing genocide. Lastly, they're bound in culture. I think this is really similar to collective association. They could probably be the same requirement, because if you have a collective association, it's obviously bound in culture, right? That's straight, really pretty easy to understand. Then we get in. So we've talked about Edwards. We've talked about McGee, Edwards, and Winkler. Let's talk about the third persona, the thing that really allows more activism within scholarship. This asks questions of what identity is being negated. It asks questions of what life is valued and what life is brought into fruition. These are important questions when you're examining ideology, because ideology usually values a particular life more than others. And to say a particular life, what I mean by that is a certain intersection of identity more than other intersections of identity. So with Edwards, Winkler, McGee, and Wonder, it's obvious that we're going to get to this tension about self and other. So let's look at our actual method. My method is, set up. We've already set up the U.S. flag and Jihadi John as ideographs. But the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the ideological associations of these ideographs, and then we're going to apply Wander's questions of the third persona to bring forth false binaries. So first, on the U.S. representatives, on the U.S. flag, the U.S. representatives in 1977, in celebration of the bicentennial of the U.S. Republic, published a little pamphlet, and it said that it gave what the colors of the flag mean. So on white, they said that white means right, essentially. I kid you not. They said white equals purity, right? Critical race theorists would have a problem with this, as do I. This sets up the white body as the only body that is naturally pure. The second color, red. Red represents hard working, or work ethic, right? This is a nod to Western Christianity and Western capitalism, i.e., the only people who can be Christian and capitalist are white. And then on blue, they say blue represents the chief. And the chief this is highly gendered. So now we have the intersection is white, Christian, capitalist, male. Sound familiar? It sounds a whole lot like neoliberalism. We have, in fact, woven neoliberal thought into our flag. The values associated with this, so there's identity associated, and then there's values associated. The values associated with the U.S. flag are equality, liberty, and democracy. Okay, so the U.S. flag, and it should be noted, I haven't said this yet, and here we go. There's a difference between the U.S. flag and Jihadi John. And that difference is that the U.S. flag is an ideograph of valorization, whereas Jihadi John is an ideograph of negation. This is an important delineation. An ideograph of valorization will show a specific identity to be upheld, while you reject all others. So it's not specific on which ones to reject other than anything that's not white, Christian, capitalist, and male. Right? So anything else. But it also has the connotation of meaning that only white, Christian, capitalist men are capable of instituting liberty, equality, and democracy. That's the life that's brought into being. That democracy is only fit for white people, and that we are the only ones who can give it to the world. So that's the U.S. flag. All right, Jihadi John. So first, Jihadi John really messed up. When most Americans think of Jihadi John, they think of a guy in a black garb with a knife to the valorized identity's throat, right? A white male, and that he kills. This is similar to the depictions of terrorists in the past I looked to Cloud and Saeed to inform my thought here, and basically what's occurring is uh, this trope of this terrorist means that uh, uh, all of Islam, all of the people in the Middle East, all of the cultures there are being monolithized, are being combined into one, and then being seen as bad. All right. And the idea association to ideology within neoliberalism is that these bodies, these cultures, are violent, savage, kind of the same thing, um, uneducatable, they can't be educated, and misogynistic or patriarchal, and then their bodies full of terror. All right, those are the values. The ideograph is Clash of Civilizations, obviously. This comes from Cloud. This is a critique against Barber and Barber's Jihad versus McWorld and Huntington's Clash of Civilizations. And this is where Cloud gets the ideograph of Clash of Civilizations. So we have an ideograph of Clash of Civilizations underpinning our ideograph of Jihadi John. And so, what kind of life, what has happened? This is an image of negation. This means that the object being talked about is the other. And when this happens, instead of it holding up one identity and then all others excluded, the flip side is not true for this. Even though they're upholding one identity to be hated, they don't say all others should be cherished. No. They say one identity to be, there's the specific identity, the specific threat, and to rid ourselves, we have to rid ourselves of it, essentially. This is like Gunn's exorcism of axis of evil with Bush. So, what we see here, the interaction, let's go back to horizontal opposition. Um, with the U.S. flag, we have where equality is made huge, democracy is made huge, and liberty is made huge, where the capacity for white bodies to harm neoliberalism is made down to be a pinprick. The flip side, with an image of negation, specifically with Jihadi John, is you have liberty being shrunk, you have um, um, equality being shrunk, democracy being shrunk, and instead you see security being blown up. Instead, you see clash of civilizations. These cultures could never interact with each other being blown up. You have the savage, right? They're being shown as the savage. So these ideographs are specific ways of committing to otherization, right? Um, um, that's how oppositionality works with images of negation versus valorization. So my limitations, it's not too generalizable. I think this needs to be tested some. I think that there's something here. I think that when we understand images of valorization, I think that this is probably going to be the case. There's probably just one identity that's upheld, all others excluded. On images of negation, there's one identity that is negated, um, and what that does is it makes the one identity that is valued be valued more. So that's the difference. But again, it's not generalizable. For future directions, I think we could do content analysis. I think we could identify ideographs, identify the values associated with them, and then determine if they're speaking positive or negative of them. And I think that it would allow us to cover far more literature. Um, the role of critical scholarship in the activist is also very important to me as someone who's been out there. Um, and uh, yeah, Wonder and McGee are right. This is a way for us critics and people who like to be politically active to engage scholarship and to help scholarship maybe move in a direction with more ethics. It also is important for understanding intercultural communication, right? Because ideology is the point at which cultural stuff is like met out, right? Like, um, so this whole thing is nothing but cultural comparison. Um, it is not the West that has the neck to their throats. It is the West who holds the knife.